Hi, I'm Maria Jose Alonso, and I'm explaining what we saw on the.
So this is a video about what I learned in the course of Enterprise Culture and Business in the World in the Tecnológico Monterrey during the semester. The first class was about the evolution of the economy and the knowledge economy that we nowadays have in the world.
In the beginning of the times, the value was mainly the amount of resources that you have to trade, like gold or food. Then, with the feudal system, it became really important the land, how much land that you have to produce those food. When the Industrial Revolution came, the production capacity became really important and was the main value. We learned that now our principal value is knowledge. We have a knowledge economy, which is based on an intense use of knowledge, information, and technology. Our economy can be also described as a global economy that had become that because all the development of the last 50 years or even more. And the main goal is the globalization, which is to have a more integrated economy. The drivers for globalization are mainly two. The one is the types of different economies, systems, and the fall of barriers for them to have a more fluid flow of goods, services, and capital. Another essential driver is all the technological advances, especially in communication. At the beginning of the class, we saw all the actual trends in the global economy right now, which are the geopolitical wars, the BRICS, the mobility in production and consumption, the next industrial revolution with all those robots and smart things, the space race, the business stepping up. That is very important. That now business are focused on its social responsibility as a marketing strategy or something like that. The reshaping in the financial market with virtual money, and the client participating in the creation of value. And all this is based on the information as a power, and that's all the main trends right now.
As an example to interpret better the changes and the evolution of economy, we'll see the next video explaining the evolution of the marketing and the business relating to the social technologies.
We all like being treated as individuals. Think of a neighborhood store where the proprietor knows you by name. You have a very personalized emotional experience. Why can't that be scaled? The growth in social media, e-commerce, mobile devices, all of these trends have given consumers tremendous power. People always believed in word of mouth. What do you think of brand A versus brand B? But with social media, you can do it at massive scale. You've got people generating 600 new blog posts, 34,000 tweets every minute. And all of this information, people are expressing their attitudes, their likes, dislikes. All you have to do is mine it. A lot of this data has a lot of noise. It's not just zeros and ones, structured data. A lot of it is text and a lot of it is video. The ability to get the signal from all of this noise is also key because you need to understand the human conversation. You have to understand the context of what is being said. You have to understand cynicism, things like emoticons, algorithms that really understand language and natural language processing. Marketing function is evolving from an art to much more of a science. The CMO of tomorrow is going to end up being the customer champion. Communicating the brand promise is important. Making sure customers get delighted by the experience after the sale is made is even more important. Because it's the experience that people have with your product or service that's going to drive brand loyalty.
As we saw, the whole business and economy has changed, so your company needs to evolve and adapt to these new changes in order to survive.
Then we saw international trade theories like specialization, that it happens when a country is focused not in a single product but a part of the market, and that ends up in a lower cost production, which allows enterprises to export and import more with more income. We also saw the mercantilism, which is to have the priority to export more than we import in your country. Then we saw the new international trade theory that begins with innovation, the creation of a product of value and producing in your country, and then like having a big part of the market about your product, and ends up with importing your own product in order to have a lower cost and more income. To have complete this international trade theory, you have to have two key points. The first of all, you have to have a big important part of the market, because of the second point, that is that you have to have a big volume of things to make the prices lower, because the specialization in other countries. The benefits of its story of the specialization in the new theory is that you import the products with lower price, and then you have more income. This leads economies of scale in a bigger variety of products with lower cost. We also saw the Michael Porter's diamonds, that is focused on the competitive advantage of an enterprise to country, and it tells us that are simple factors that affect your competitive. The first factor is your own firm strategy, structure, and rivalry. The demand conditions, your market, the government, how the laws and government affect on your production and on your selling and all that, and the related supporting industries that support us, that support your business. Another point that is important in the Michael Porter's diamond is the factor condition, which is in the production. That relates like a specialization, because the factor conditions, you can have all the story, the government and the main conditions in one country, but your factor conditions can be in another country that allows you to have a better price to compete with your competitors and win them. At the end of the class, we have a debate about globalization versus nationalism. We conclude that a lot of countries that are imposing nationalism um, expense and have a better results with globalization, because sometimes globalization affects, because the bigger countries that take a lot of advantage of smaller countries, and they end up with much uh, no much um, benefits. We conclude that the nationalism creates an extra specialization that allows the country to reach its goals and a better morality of its community. And that will be all.
Now that we know what shapes the economy right now, we'll see which are their players, the internationalization flow of capital, and the globalization process.
Saw the government interventions on a country to develop its economy, or protect their industries or human rights or for national security, like the tariffs and all the taxes to import or export, like ad valorem, specific certificates, and all those policies. We also saw the economic arguments that they made, like to develop some industry or international trades, or to bring investment to Mexico. And why is that important? Because all those industries provides new jobs, which generates a better life for the population, for the community. We also saw the different agreements that the world made, and who regulates the economy of the world. like the countries or the companies, the big companies, and the systems and institutions like the GPAs or NGOs that controls all that. We also saw what is capitalism, that is its ideology, when the owner of an enterprise uh, owns all the benefits that the enterprise made. We have in Mexico a capitalism system. We also saw that the government is looking for a better life for its community. We also saw the reasons to enter on a foreign market, which is to expand their market, their control, and better benefits for its own country. And why it's important to focus on the major trade partners, like the agreements that the countries has to another ones to stop all those barriers to import and promote all the commerce, like the one we have with United States and Canada or the European Union. We also saw the benefits to commerce with the USA, like there's a lot of Latin people, of Mexican people, which we can sell them all the products that are in here and export them, and then they will be related to them, and it will be a huge boom. The class was about the strategies that a multinational company may have. A multinational company is a company that has its headquarters in some country, but factories or stores elsewhere. But first of all, why will a company want to have a bigger market?
After this, we'll see a video from the CEO from Playboy.
Well, I think there's a lot more international potential than historically American media companies have capitalized on. I think that's understandable. Ours is such a large market here that you could build a very robust business just by concentrating on the U.S. But I think if you look internationally, you'll see that the best companies rarely stay within their own borders and rarely stay within one media platform. So I think that bodes well for American media companies in terms of growth.
This was a point of view from a professional, and we will see the point of view from the class.
There are several reasons for it, like to have a lower cost production, a better credibility and position around the world, better deals, and a bigger market to sell more. But this doesn't mean that you have to always enter into a foreign market. You need very good reasons and possible ones to have the correct decision and not fail. First, to expand your company, you have to have a very clear understanding of it, its mission, vision, and all that, and the way that you will approach the foreign market, the way you're competing with another companies. This is an international strategy. The goal of an international strategy is to achieve and maintain the competitive advantage. And there's a global strategic plan to do it. First of all, you analyze the company's external and internal environment, you set your vision and goals, and you formulate strategies and plans to achieve them. This all doesn't have to always be in a linear plan. You could mix it. Um, it's very important to the senior management to think the decisions to long term, not just for the better for the moment, but the company, the position, and all that. You have an open mind to identify opportunities and allocate responsibilities. To have a better productivity. Another way to achieve that productivity is through the benchmarking, which is learn from the best. There are several ways to do benchmarking, like internal, the competitive, the functional, and the generic. All these ways expose your managers and workers to different ways to think and do things to encourage creativity and improve their results, their productivity. The goal of a business is to generate profits through the creation of value for the company. Before you enter into a foreign market, you have to do a checklist. You have to check the differences between your country and the country that you will approach and all that. There are several strategies for a multinational company. The first of all is the global strategy, which is the goal is to have a lower production cost. The second goal is multi-domestic strategy, which you're looking to overcome the local pressures and adapting your products or services to the local market. And there's the third is a mix of the last two. Is the transnational strategy. The goal is to reduce cost and the local pressures, like make some things and then sell them right there. In the class, we saw the ethics that a company should have in order to enter into a different country, where the ethics of the person there are not the same like in their home country or nation. The ethics are the accepted principles that govern the conduct of a person, the members of a profession, of the actions of an organization or a company. Like when the ancient Romans say that when in Rome, do as the Romans. Here, you sometimes you have to behave like in the country that you will enter, but not always within certain limits. The business ethics are the accepted principles of right and wrong that govern the conductive of business people. And there's exists that ethical strategy that is a course of action where that ethics are not violated even when the ethics of the country are not the same. An ethical dilemma is a situation when the commercial interests are opposed to the ethical principles of an organization. And in this class, we saw how you should uh, what you should do when you have an ethical dilemma. The ethical obligations of multinational corporations are toward the employment conditions, the factories, the human rights, the freedom, the speech, the labor hours, and the corruption to get a deal, the environmental pollution that can affect the people living there. Like we saw the video of the tragedy of the commons. Like we all have the right to explore the natural resources, but within a certain limit because we could maybe exploit them so much that there will not be anymore. The areas of conflict with these ethical dilemmas are employment practices, the human rights, the environmental pollution, the corruptions, and the moral obligations, like I just said. And what does that impulse that? The drivers are the personalities, the decision making process, the organization culture, how your employees behave, and when you set their realistic performance goals, like they are too high that the people has to violate their ethics in order to achieve that goals. The leadership, you have to have a very good leadership to not make your employees act wrong. And that's all we saw. See you. The class was about the decisions that you have to decide before you enter into a foreign market. This is the most important stage of the process of internalization because based on that you will have success or not in your process. There are two basic decisions to choose the market, which foreign market, which country, when you will do that, and in which scale. You can base your decisions in the benefits, how much you could extract to it, the cost, if it will be not very expensive, and the risk. Maybe it's a very volatile market, or maybe its economy has been growing or not. And that's very important because you can have advantage of it. And then you will have to choose the second decision, which entry form to enter in that country. There are six principles. There are the franchises that is when you sell like a manual to a partner and they sell like your successful business, but it's from for them. And they have like a segregate
like the security that they will extract money of it. For a better understanding of franchises, we'll see a video about the origin of them.
Quick, what's common between beef burgers, baseball training, and auto mufflers? Tough question. Let's ask it another way. What's the common factor between McDonald's, D-Bat, and Meineke? You may know the answer if, along with the Big Mac, you've absorbed a fragment of the romantic story of Ray Kroc. He's the salesman who created what became the world's biggest fast food chain. He did it by making a deal with a couple of men called the McDonald's, brothers they were, owners of a small restaurant chain, and the deal was he could use their brand name and their methods. Then he invited small entrepreneurs to open McDonald's that they'd run as operators, with an ownership stake. Very different than the business model where mom and pop stores have full ownership but no similar support. All the examples in my opening question are franchise operations. Kroc is sometimes credited with inventing franchising, and so is Isaac Singer, the sewing machine magnate. Not so. The real genesis of franchising was not in stitches or beef. It was in beauty. Martha Matilda Harper was a Canadian-born maid. She made the beds, cleaned house, did the shopping. In the employment of a doctor's family in Ontario, she acquired a secret formula for shampoo, one more scientifically based than the quackeries advertised every day in the newspapers. The kindly doctor also taught the maturing young woman the elements of physiology. Martha had a secret ambition to go along with the secret formula, a determination to run her own business. By 1888, serving as a maid in Rochester, New York, she'd saved enough money, $360, to think of opening a public hairdressing salon. But before she could realize her dream, 2 blows fell. She became sick and collapsed from exhaustion. Mrs. Helen Smith, a healing practitioner of the Christian Science faith, was summoned to her bedside. The 2 women prayed, and Martha recovered. No sooner was she better than she was told, "Oh no, you can't rent the place you vied." You see, her venture was to be the first public hairdressing salon. A woman in business was shocking enough then. Only 17% of the workforce in 1890 was female. But a woman carrying out hairdressing and skin care in a public place, why, it was sure to invite a scandal. Martha spent some of her savings on a lawyer and won her case. She proudly displayed on the door of her new salon a photograph of the barely 5-foot Martha as Rapunzel, with hair down to her feet, but glowing with good health. Her sickness, too, had proved a boon. Her ambition was now propelled by Christian Science values. The Harper method, as she came to call her services, was as much about servicing the soul as it was about cutting hair. In the therapeutic serenity of her salon, she taught that every person could glow with the kind of beauty she had, if spiritually whole and physically obedient to what she called the laws of cleanliness, nourishment, exercise, and breathing. She was very practical about it. She even designed the first reclining shampoo chair, though she neglected to patent the invention. Martha's salon was a huge success. Celebrities came from out of town to experience the Harper method. They enjoyed the service so much that they urged her to set up a salon in their cities. And this is where Martha's ethical sense inspired her crowning innovation. Instead of commissioning agents, as other innovators had done, from 1891 she installed working-class women just like herself in salons exactly like hers, dedicated to her philosophy and her products. But these new employees were not provided a salary by Martha. The women in what became a satellite network of 500 salons in America and then Europe and Central America and Asia actually owned the Harper salons. What was good enough in the 19th century for suffragette campaigners like Susan B. Anthony and was good enough in the 20th century for Woodrow Wilson, Calvin and Grace Coolidge, Jacqueline Kennedy, Helen Hayes and Lady Bird Johnson must be good enough for the rest of the world. Today, only the Harper Method Founders Shop remains in Rochester, New York, but Martha's legacy is manifold. Her health and beauty treatments have been copied and her business model is dominant. In fact, half of retail sales in America are through Martha Harper's franchising idea. So next time you enjoy a McDonald's hamburger or a good night's rest at a Days Inn, think of Martha, because these franchises might not be the same without her inventing the model over a century ago.
It's not necessary to say that the franchises nowadays are very used around the world and we can see them everywhere. Now we continue with the licenses.
It's when you sell your image to another product, like for the branding. The joint venture, that is when you associate with a partner that knows the market, and it's convenient when you don't have idea of the country and all that to not make mistakes. The export, that is when you just commercialize your product and they sell them. The turnkey project, that it's like the franchises, but the investors only have to invest, like they don't have to control the business. And the subs and when you establish your business there, like you have to put your own store and you control all that. So that are the 6 main entry forms, and you will choose that and have success in your business.
Cultural and geopolitical factors. First of all, we will see what is culture from the point of view of common people.
Hi, I'm Louise from Quintessential, and today we're in London finding out what culture means.
Culture is language. Everything is like how we speak, our mannerisms, our body language, how we relate to each other, the words we use, all the great literature and the history, the King James Bible, all that.
Like different backgrounds.
Pride.
Culture is a mixture of various individuals sharing ideas, learning from each other.
The getting together of people in a country to celebrate our histories and traditions.
History, painters, architecture, a lot of things.
Like what a country is famous for and how people live in the country.
Culture, tradition.
Fantastic music and ballet and art and those sort of things.
That's a difficult one, but culture involves like everything is about nationality, the style of living, the way we are in different countries like Spain compared to UK.
First, and like everyone, just all the differences together in one community, and like just being kind of accepting everything and everyone.
I think culture is just your history and your special little things like tea and everything together, and each country have its own culture, and it's very important. Never forget this, guys.
Now that we have seen the idea that the people in UK has about culture, we'll see a more specific ideas from other parts of the world. are several definitions, and we review some of them in the class.
And it's like a pair of glasses which you see the world. The more you know about different cultures, the more open-minded you are. But like the main definition is a culture is a set of beliefs, rules, techniques, institutions, and artifacts that characterizes a human group. So this is very important because the more you know about a person's culture, the better your predictions about their decisions will be. Culture is not like innate; it's learned and it's shared by a group. To be ready to these different changes of culture, you first need to be prepared, measure time of learning the culture, develop trust between your coworkers, understand the importance of the language, which is very important to communicate, respect the culture, and understand the elements of the culture to like that act better. And what is the culture referred to the business? There are three basic leads that affect the culture in a business. First is the marketing, that perceives the beauty and all that is different between cultures. So in order to make a strategy, you have to learn that. The human resource management, how the people work and be together is very important to management the business very well and your people, and the production and finance, how they act towards the authority and changes and all that to better management also. The social cultural elements are the aesthetics, the attitudes and beliefs, the religion, the material culture, the languages, the social organization, education, political structure, y legal characteristics.
The sociocultural elements are something that you really need to be aware of. To see the importance of these and how we perceive beauty change around the world, we'll see the next video. These changes in culture could really affect your business, so you need to take them seriously.
Now we saw the geographical factors that affect a lot of your product and all that. The location, the topography, altitude, climate, and natural resources are the main elements that affect the geopolitical and geographical uh, effects in your product and your business to internalization that. And that's all.
The economic and financial factors that affect the process of internationalization of a company, and they are really important because of the development of the business. It's really important to have a lot of information of the economy as much as possible before you enter in a different country. We saw that the GDP is all the money that people in some country produce, and GDP per capita is that money between the people that live there, like how much every people produce. There are several categories of countries, are three: the developed countries that are with a high income level, developing that are in process of growth, and they're growing really faster, and that they have a middle income GDP per capita, and undeveloping that are like the poor ones that doesn't have technology and all that. You have to know what kind of country you are entered to, and there are also a lot of different categorization that are the newly industrialized countries, like the developing countries with a rapid growth, a high foreign investment, and they export large quantities of manufactured goods. Mexico is entering into these kind of countries because of the export that we do and the manufacturing production. And there are the highly industrialized economies that their principal activity are the services, and they're like the developed countries. They're still growing really fast, and the four tigers fall into this category that are Hong Kong, Singapore, etc. Another factors to consider in the economy are the total population, the age distribution, the population distribution if they're in the coast or all of it, or in all of the country, and the industrialized, the technology, and the education that the people has in average. And then are the financial factors. They are external, and they are the ability of your financially in the way you manage those external factors. An example of the financial factors are the taxes, savings, tariffs, inflation, exchange rate that measures the level of economy. It's very important in the interest rate that they control the flow of money and and resources and all that. Other financial forces are the control of exchange rate and balance of payments and all that. For a better explanation of how the financial forces act in the economy of our business, we'll see the next video.
If you tried to pay for something with a piece of paper, you might run into some trouble. Unless, of course, the piece of paper was a $100 bill. But what is it that makes that bill so much more interesting and valuable than other pieces of paper? After all, there's not much you can do with it. You can't eat it. You can't build things with it, and burning it is actually illegal. So what's the big deal? Of course, you probably know the answer. A $100 bill is printed by the government and designated as official currency, while other pieces of paper are not. But that's just what makes them legal. What makes a $100 bill valuable, on the other hand, is how many or few of them are around. Throughout history, most currency, including the US dollar, was linked to valuable commodities, and the amount of it in circulation depended on a government's gold or silver reserves. But after the US abolished the system in 1971, the dollar became what is known as fiat money, meaning not linked to any external resource, but relying instead solely on government policy to decide how much currency to print. So which branch of our government sets this policy? The executive, the legislative, or the judicial? The surprising answer is none of the above. In fact, monetary policy is set by an independent Federal Reserve System, or the Fed, made up of 12 regional banks in major cities around the country. Its Board of Governors, which is appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate, reports to Congress, and all of the Fed's profit goes into the U.S. Treasury. But to keep the Fed from being influenced by the day-to-day vicissitudes of politics, it is not under the direct control of any branch of government. So why doesn't the Fed just decide to print infinite $100 bills to make everyone happy and rich? Well, because then the bills wouldn't be worth anything. Think about the purpose of currency, which is to be exchanged for goods and services. If the total amount of currency in circulation increases faster than the total value of goods and services in the economy, then each individual piece will be able to buy a smaller portion of those things than before. This is called inflation. On the other hand, if the money supply remains the same while more goods and services are produced, each dollar's value would increase in a process known as deflation. So which is worse? Too much inflation means that the money in your wallet today will be worth less tomorrow, making you want to spend it right away. So while this would stimulate business, it would also encourage overconsumption or hoarding commodities like food and fuel, raising their prices and leading to consumer shortages and even more inflation. But deflation would make people want to hold on to their money, and a decrease in consumer spending would reduce business profits, leading to more unemployment and a further decrease in spending, causing the economy to keep shrinking. So most economists believe that while too much of either is dangerous, a small, consistent amount of inflation is necessary to encourage economic growth. The Fed uses vast amount of economic data to determine how much currency should be in circulation, including previous rates of inflation, international trends, and the unemployment rate. Like in the story of Goldilocks, they need to get the numbers just right in order to stimulate growth and keep people employed without letting inflation reach disruptive levels. The Fed not only determines how much that paper in your wallet is worth, but also your chances of getting or keeping the job where you earn it.
As we saw in the previous video, the government has a lot of participation and power in the economy of a country or globally, so we'll see the political factors that affect your business. There are three main ideologies or political systems. The communism, where all the property is collectively owned, the labor is organized for the common advantage of the people, and everyone consumes according to their needs. The capitalism, you are motivated by the profit, and you have the private property and all that. In the socialism, the government intervenes a lot in the economy and runs some of the productive sectors, and it acts for the common good of the society. From ideologies, there are two main ideologies that are conservatives and liberal, the right and left. The right, the conservatives, wants to avoid the change and doesn't want the government to intervene in its economy and all that. And the liberal wants change and new ideas and the government involved to help and all that. But what does this mean to a company? First of all, when you have communism or something like that, you cannot own the company or run the company in that country. And there are some movements from your company that the government can interfere. There exists the privatization, the expropriation, and the nationalization. The privatization, you buy the company from the government. When you expropriate something, the government extracts the properties from foreigners and own it. And the nationalization, some company, the government buys some company. The political factors are the government in protection, the terrorism, the government instability, the country race, the changes of society, like the revolution, the wars, the government, the change of socialism and nationalism systems and all that. And you should look out for that when you will enter into a new country. Like if there's a war or something, you have more risk and it's not convenient.
The class was about the last factors that affect the process of internationalization, that are the legal factors. These factors cannot be ignored because if you don't fulfill the law requirements, you can get in trouble, get a lot of lawsuits, or even get in jail and cost a lot of money and time to yourself, your company, and even your family. So it's really important to know the law of the country that you want to enter. and establish your business before you do that, to know if it's convenient and all that. The rule of law is how strong the law in the country is, like how much the people there follow the law. It's really important to know that, to know how to behave and how the people there will be behaving. There are another law forces, like the international laws, that are publics and privates. The sources of these international laws are the treaties between nations or countries, like the TPP or the NAFTA, that are the agreements to stimulate the commerce and business between nations. And the other source of international law is the customary international law, that are like the organizations that establish some law, like the human rights and all that. The extraterritoriality is how you will protect in another country. Like you will be judged by your own law of your nation, or of the law of the country that you are. And it's like how much power the government has in another territories. You can get protected by the agreements that I just said, like the TPP, that establish some specifications in law that you must follow, so you can get your trial based on that and win and protect yourself. And also you can get protected by the ONU and the civil rights and human rights and all that. The litigation is a process that happens when you are in a trial. To avoid the litigation or accelerate, you need to have a very specific and clear contract to don't get in trouble with another people in different nations or countries, and to don't get lawsuits and cost money and loss. There are some encouragements that the government made through the law to attract foreign investment, like the no taxes policies, or the privacy law, to not know to the government not knowing how much money do you have in the bank. And also, sometimes the lack of laws against pollution is like a benefit to invest in some countries. This is really sad, and it's like more an ethical issue, but sometimes it's a real advantage for some countries. Also, you need to know the protection of the workers. Sometimes this is a benefit if the law isn't strong enough, because you can lay off or fire your workers and increase your productivity, or otherwise to protect you to don't lose workers. So the legal factors can act in benefit of you or like a disadvantage. So you really need to consider them, and you cannot ignore them. So it's really important to take care about them. These were our last class, and this is the last video. So I'm really thankful to have taken this course, and I'm really happy about the knowledge that I get. And that will be all. Goodbye.